every night while more than 8 billion people on Earth sleep. Something quite strange happens. As your body sleeps, it actually becomes completely paralyzed. You drift for hours among vivid hallucinations and then suddenly wake up, forgetting almost everything that just happened. But here's the truly shocking part: this loss of control. In 1862, a chemist was struggling to figure out the structure of benzene, thinking it over and over, and then fell asleep. In his dream, he saw snakes biting their own tails, twisting into rings. That's the moment the answer he'd been waiting for arrived, and it completely transformed modern chemistry. The same thing happened to Paul McCartney. When he woke up, the legendary song "Yesterday" had already formed in his mind. So it turns out you and your brain can solve complex problems, even while you're asleep. But to pull this off, it sets aside ordinary logic, scrambles memories together, builds a strange and incoherent reality, and when you open your eyes, leaves behind only a hazy impression. So what are dreams really? Why does the brain need such a bizarre process every single night? Today, we're going to shed light on one of humanity's most puzzling mysteries and the real science behind dreams. First, we need to rewind time to 1952, to a rundown laboratory at the University of Chicago. There, a researcher named Eugene Aserinsky had an idea that people at the time found quite bizarre: staying awake all night just to watch other people sleep. Back then, scientists believed that when we fall asleep, the brain essentially shuts off like a light bulb. But when Aserinsky attached electrodes to his son's head and other volunteers, he was stunned. After several hours of calm, deep sleep, their brains would suddenly light up. Brainwaves began fluctuating wildly, as if they were solving calculus problems or racing in a Formula One race. And the most fascinating part was that behind closed eyelids, the eyeballs darted rapidly back and forth, as if watching a fast-paced tennis match up close. They named this REM, or rapid eye movement, sleep. And when Aserinsky woke a volunteer, right as their eyes were moving this way, most of them shouted, "Oh my God, I was just having an incredibly vivid dream." So what's actually happening inside your skull during this? There are 4 critically important biological changes. First, total paralysis. Your brainstem sends a powerful chemical signal to lock down your major muscles. Why? It's nature's clever safety mechanism. It's what stops you from swinging your arm and punching your partner while dreaming you're an MMA fighter. Without this system, dreams would turn into real-life disasters. Second, realistic hallucination. During REM sleep, your visual cortex becomes highly active, making dream imagery incredibly vivid. That's why colors seem so bright and details so sharp in dreams. For your brain in that moment, seeing through imagination can feel even more real than seeing with your eyes. Third, the disappearance of logic. This is, in my opinion, the funniest part. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for reasoning, judgment, and self-control, suddenly becomes far less active. That's why it seems perfectly normal and logical in your dream to ride a giant chicken to go get bubble tea. You never question it until you wake up thinking, what on earth was that dream about? Finally, memory wipe mode. The chemicals needed to form long-term memories, especially norepinephrine, drop to very low levels. Your brain essentially says, hey, none of this crazy, nonsensical stuff is worth saving to the hard drive. Delete it. That's why most of your dream details vanish rapidly within just 10 minutes of waking up. This is the perfect setup for a top-tier virtual reality cinema inside your skull. You're simultaneously the director, the lead actor, and the sole audience member. But this cinema doesn't run randomly throughout the night. It follows an extremely strict schedule that scientists call the sleep cycle. Every night, you go through 4 to 6 cycles, each lasting about 90 minutes. Think of it like a roller coaster ride. First, you enter light sleep called NREM 1 and 2. NREM stands for non-rapid eye movement, meaning rapid eye movement, REM, hasn't kicked in yet. At this point, you can be easily woken by a small sound, even your cat walking. Then the train dives into deep sleep, NREM 3. This is when long, slow, powerful brain waves called delta waves take over. During this stage, your body handles maintenance work like tissue repair, muscle building, and strengthening the immune system. If you're woken up here, you'll feel extremely groggy and disoriented. And then, once the body's maintenance is done, the brain suddenly says, "Okay, time for fun." The roller coaster climbs again, carrying you into REM sleep, where the most vivid dreams occur. Here's something interesting. Sleep cycles don't stay the same throughout the night. In the first half of the night, your brain focuses more on deep sleep to heal the body. But as morning approaches, REM phases get longer and more frequent. That's why the strangest, longest, and most memorable dreams tend to happen around 5 to 6 a.m., right before that annoying alarm goes off and ruins everything. And did you know, humans aren't the only species that dream? Scientists have observed REM sleep in most mammals, and even in birds. Even your dog dreams. If you see your dog's legs twitching and hear it growling softly while asleep, it's probably imagining chasing a giant squirrel through its own private dream park. This is exactly where the story gets even more interesting. Before Eugene Aserinsky discovered REM sleep in 1952, people had no real idea what happened in the mind during sleep. For thousands of years, without brain scanners or electrodes, people tried to explain this cinema through imagination and religious belief. Take the ancient Egyptians, for example. To them, dreams weren't produced by the brain. They were direct messages from the gods. They valued dreams so much that they even built sleep temples. People would go there, fall into a deep sleep, and the next morning, professional dream interpreters would help decode the will of the gods. Their interpretations were quite interesting too. If you died horribly in your dream, don't worry. According to the Egyptians, that was a sign you'd live a long life. If you dreamed of urinating in the Nile, congratulations! Your crops would flourish and money would flow like water. Back then, dreams were essentially a weather forecast for your fate. This idea persisted for centuries until one of the most controversial figures of the early 20th century emerged, Sigmund Freud. He was the one who pulled dreams out of the divine realm and brought them back into the human mind. In 1900, Freud published his groundbreaking book, The Interpretation of Dreams. He proposed a theory that still embarrasses people today. Freud believed dreams were the royal road to the unconscious. To him, every dream was a disguised desire. Do you have hidden desires? Dark urges that society and morality don't allow you to act on while awake? Don't worry, your brain lets you act them out in your dreams. But since these desires can be shameful, the brain encodes them using symbols. For example, according to Freud, seeing a key or a stick usually represents male genitalia. Later, his student Carl Jung took this idea even further. Jung believed dreams weren't just about personal desires, but also contained symbols shared by all of humanity, like the hero, the witch, or the monster. According to Jung, dreams were the mind's way of making us more balanced and whole. For a long time, Freud and Jung convinced the entire world of this. Every dream was an encoded message waiting to be solved. And if you didn't understand your dreams, it meant you were missing a major secret about yourself. But once modern brain imaging tools like fMRI and PET scans emerged, neuroscientists began to face a harsh truth. During dreaming, the brain operated in a very mechanical and practical way. They started moving away from Freud and Jung. Instead of asking, "What does this dream mean?" they asked a more survival-focused question. Why would evolution preserve such an energy-consuming and risky mechanism as dreaming. And from this, 5 major modern scientific theories emerged. The first theory is the activation synthesis theory. This is probably the most boring one. Scientists suggest dreams don't actually have any deep meaning. During REM sleep, your brainstem sends random, chaotic electrical signals to the cortex. Imagine your brain like a child randomly flipping light switches on and off. Your cortex, responsible for making sense of the world, suddenly receives a flood of complex signals. It panics. Since it can't leave things chaotic, it tries to turn these random images and sounds into a coherent story. The result? A wild dream is born. In other words, dreams are simply your brain's attempt to find order within chaos. Like looking at cracks in a wall and seeing a face there. The second theory is memory consolidation theory. This is the most widely accepted theory today. Scientists view dreams as the brain's save button. Throughout the day, you accumulate a ton of information. Learning a new language, practicing a piece of music, even remembering what your coworker wore that morning. At night, during dreaming, the brain starts sorting through all of it. It's like a librarian organizing a chaotic pile of books. It decides what gets saved to long-term memory and what gets discarded. In 2010, researchers conducted a famous experiment. They had volunteers complete a very difficult 3D maze exercise on a computer. One group took a nap and dreamed about the maze, while the other group either rested or slept without dreaming about the maze. The result? The group that dreamed about the maze solved it much faster afterward. This showed that when you dream about something you're learning, your brain is actually practicing and improving that skill in the background. The third theory is threat simulation theory. Do you have nightmares? Have you ever dreamed of being chased, falling, or being attacked? Of course you have. I bet we've all experienced this at some point. So why does this happen? Evolutionary psychologists believe dreams act like a virtual reality, training room for survival. Our ancestors lived in a world full of predators and enemies. If you dreamed of running from a saber-toothed tiger, your brain was practicing real survival responses. How to run faster, where to hide. Because you're in a safe place, in your own bed, you can rehearse the most dangerous scenarios without getting hurt. Thanks to this training in dreams, your reactions the next day when facing a real danger can be faster and more accurate. Nightmares are essentially an accelerated survival training course for your brain. The fourth theory is social simulation theory. This is a modern version of the threat theory. In the 21st century, we no longer fear saber-toothed tigers. We fear social judgment. Dreams tend to simulate stressful social situations. A heated argument with your boss, a disastrous date with someone you have feelings for, or the classic one, realizing you forgot to wear pants while giving a speech in front of a crowd. This is the brain's way of helping you deal with complex relationships. It lets you practice handling emotional conflicts like shame or rejection. Dreams are where we test social scenarios so we can become more skilled social beings. The fifth theory is the creativity and problem-solving theory. This is the key theory that explains the Kekulé and Paul McCartney stories I mentioned earlier. In dreams, since the brain's logic center is much less active, it's no longer bound by physical rules or social expectations. It freely connects ideas that normally have nothing to do with each other. It lets you truly think outside the box. A problem you couldn't solve while awake, bound by rules, can be given a wild but effective solution by your brain in a dream. Dreams are like a boundless creative lab, where some of humanity's greatest ideas are delivered straight to your mind at 3 a.m. Now this is where things start to get a bit unsettling. Because the next theory doesn't just change how you see dreams. It changes how you see your own brain. This theory was proposed by famous neuroscientist David Eagleman and is called defensive activation theory. To understand this theory, you need to know a shocking fact about the brain. The brain is extremely flexible. It has neuroplasticity. Brain regions aren't fixed. Like countries on a map, they're constantly competing for territory. When a region stops being active, even briefly, nearby regions quickly move in to claim that space. Experiments have shown that when your eyes are completely blindfolded, the auditory and touch cortex can begin invading the visual cortex in as little as 40 to 60 minutes. The brain doesn't let any region sit idle. Now think about our ancestors. Every night, for 8 to 10 hours, they slept in complete darkness. In that darkness, the visual cortex had no input to process. This created a major evolutionary risk. If you see nothing for 10 hours, your visual system could start being taken over by other senses. When you wake up, your vision could weaken, and you might even lose some color perception. So what was evolution's solution? Dreams. According to David Eagleman, dreams may act like a biological screensaver system. About every 90 minutes, the brainstem sends bursts of visual imagery to the visual cortex just to keep it occupied. This way, it can signal to other brain regions, "Hey, I'm still working here, don't take over my territory." In other words, we may be dreaming to preserve our ability to see. Dreams aren't just artistic films. They're a territorial war happening inside your skull. This perspective flips everything around, turning dreams from something mystical into a ruthlessly practical biological tool. So in the end, which theory is correct? Organizing memory, practicing survival, boosting creativity, or simply preserving vision? The most honest answer from science is probably all of them at once. Evolution is incredibly good at making the best use of everything it has. Dreams may have started for a simple, technical reason, like protecting the visual cortex, but over time, the brain began using that same mechanism for many other purposes, from emotional processing and memory building to creating legendary music. After all this research, what fascinates me most is humanity's strange contradiction. We've photographed black holes millions of light years away. We've fully decoded the human genome. We've created AI that can write and draw. And yet, we still can't fully agree on why our brains run their own cinema every single night. Dreams remain a reminder that the universe inside the human mind is just as vast and mysterious as the universe outside. So tonight, when you lie down and close your eyes and start to feel your body settling down, enjoy it. In a moment, you'll be entering the world's greatest, strangest, and most personal cinema. It's the only place where you can fly, talk to people who are no longer with us, solve the mysteries of the universe, or just have bubble tea with a dragon. If you saw yourself in these strange films last night, subscribe and share this video with a friend who loves dreaming as much as you do. And don't forget to share the wildest dream you've ever had in the comments. I'm genuinely curious. There's a whole universe of mysteries you haven't discovered yet. Click the video on your screen to continue your journey toward becoming smarter.